people are joining us right now. So thank you for taking this time on Monday afternoon to join us to learn more about experiential learning. Joining me today is Dr. Jennifer Fanread. She is the director of the Center for Engaged Learning. She's going to be talking to you today about the academic experience with undergrad research and internships. If you have any questions, there is a question and answer bottom. You can click on this, submit your questions. I will read them off to Jennifer anytime during the session. So I'm going to switch it over to Dr. Fanread to talk about the Center for Engaged Learning.
Welcome, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. Happy August. I hope that wherever you are, wherever you're watching from right now, you are well, you're safe, your family is well and safe, and the weather's really good. It's a little warm in Providence today, but other than that, it's an amazing day here in Providence, Rhode Island. As Kelly very generously said, my name is Dr. Jennifer Fanread. I am a faculty member in the psychology department at Providence College, and I'm also the director of what we call the Center for Engaged Learning. And so I thought today I'd just spend some time walking through some of the exciting things that we're doing in the Center for Engaged Learning. But I also want to say that there's a lot else that's going on at Providence College related to engaged learning that is happening in other offices, other departments, other units on campus. And so I'm happy to answer questions about those too, even if I'm not the director of them, and I'll do that to the best of my ability. So I'm gonna put up some slides just real quick, just because I wanted to make sure to show you guys some pictures, some names, some faces of some of the amazing students that we've had take advantage of some of our opportunities. And just so you get to look at something else other than me and the wall in my house. But as Kelly said, if any time that you have a question, feel free to type it in the Q&A or the chat box, whatever is easiest, and we'll make sure to answer that. I'd rather you just type in the question whenever you have it so you don't forget it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about engaged learning at Providence College. While I do this, I'm gonna do that awkward thing where I stare at my computer screen trying to find the right button to do the share screen. Here we go. I'm getting better at it. We're all learning, right? All right. So the Center for Engaged Learning. And let me talk a little bit first about what I mean when I say engaged learning. Because engaged learning to me is a really big category of things. And it's something that happens in the classroom and outside of the classroom. I think that a lot of people, when they hear the word engaged learning or they hear the word experiential learning, they think like, oh, that's the thing that I do outside of the classroom. So I do like all my book learning and the lectures in the classroom, and then outside of the classroom is where I do all the engaged learning, the experiential learning. And I really think that that's a false distinction. You can do engaged learning wherever you are. You can do it in your bedroom or your dorm room. You can do it in the lecture hall. You can do it in a seminar classroom. You can do it in a student club organization meeting. You can do it, and then through an experience, like a traditional internship or a research experience or a study away experience. So what I think is any experience that you're having at Providence College, whether it's the in-classroom, whether it's a student event, whether it is an off-campus experience, you can be an engaged learner. So the mission of the Center for Engaged Learning is to try to promote engaged learning, the type of learning where you as a student are taking ownership over your learning. You're saying like, wow, this is really interesting to me, or I'm really passionate about that, or I want to find out more about that. And you tune into those interests and passions and drives as a way to spur your further growth and development. So it's about curiosity, it's about motivation, it's about being creative, it's about being reflective. And again, you can do that in a big lecture hall, or you can do that on an internship. And we offer lots of different opportunities of all sorts of different types of things, both in classroom and outside of classroom, for you to be able to do that. So what am I talking about? So I'm going to organize this into kind of 4 big categories, just to sort of show you the types of things that we're trying to do. So these are examples. The first thing that the Center for Engaged Learning is really active in is helping students transition into college successfully and helping promote what we call academic resilience, so that everybody, no matter where you're coming from, no matter what your background is, you're a part of the Providence College community as soon as you get here, and you're going to be successful, no matter what your path is. So one of the ways we do that is we offer a class called Introduction to Providence College. It's a 1 credit class or 1.5 credit class. So it's only once a week. And what happens is that class is taught by your academic advisor. And your academic advisor is a specially trained member of our faculty or member of the professional staff. And their whole goal, right, is to help you transition successfully into Providence College, to make sure that you're on the path for academic success. So what we do in that class is, it's not just like how to study or kind of here are all the resources that are at Providence College. So it's not like orientation. You know, you get orientation, but you also get this Introduction to Providence College class where you're invited to think really deeply about what you want out of college, why you're here, what your personal goals are, what your professional goals are, what your options are. And so we spend a lot of time in that class doing a lot of self-exploration, and we spend a lot of time learning about all the different paths that are available, how to go about going on, you know, exploring one of those paths, you know, different majors and minors, different career paths, what sort of skills do you need to be successful? And so it's a low-key class, but it's really fun and really warm and really inviting. And what we find is that 1 credit class, even though it sounds so simple, is really helpful in making sure that that first semester goes really well and sets you off on a really good foundation, so that it kind of just springboards you for the rest of college. I'm really excited that this year, fall 2020, up to 80% of Providence College first-year students, so our incoming students, are going to be enrolled in some sort of first-year program. And that could be this class that I just talked about, Intro to PC. We have a couple other classes that are kind of similar to it, or the business school has a first-year advising workshop. So there's lots of different first-year programs that make it really easy to transition into Providence College and feel part of like the community. In collaboration with some folks over in Student Affairs, the Center for Engaged Learning is working on building academic resilience. So again, this is not just a program from the Center for Engaged Learning, it's a collaboration, but it's one that we're super excited about. So academic resilience is a skill that maybe doesn't get talked about as much, but at Providence College, we've been working on this for a few years. And in the pandemic now, it's become extra important. So academic resilience is this ability to experience positive educational outcomes in the face of challenging life experiences. Challenging life experiences, right? That sounds exactly where we all are right now. And so what the research suggests about this is that academic resilience is a skill that you can actually learn. A lot of people think that you're either born being resilient or you're not, but turns out that's not true. I'm really excited about this because as I said before, I'm a psychologist. And so this is kind of near and dear to my heart. You can learn resilience, you can practice it. It's like a muscle, you can build it up. So what we do at Providence College is we have a set number of faculty every single year who get extra training to build academic resilience into their courses. So they actually teach it along with whatever subject they're teaching. So for example, last year we had Intro to Biology was an academic resilience course. We had some theology classes, we had some business classes. So they're all over. Some of them are intro level classes, some of them are more senior seminars. This upcoming year, we have like 17 or 18 different faculty who are doing this with us, and I'm really excited about it. Students come out of this program feeling less anxious, less stressed, more able to really think about obtaining those positive academic outcomes they want for themselves. All right, so that was transition and academic success. Number 2, we're really committed to helping faculty and staff provide really engaging experiences both inside and outside the classroom. So sometimes a faculty member is teaching a class and all of a sudden like an unexpected opportunity pops up and they just need a little bit of extra funding or a little bit of extra support or resources in order to make that happen. And so that's where the Center for Engaged Learning comes in. So we're able to do some things like focus on a particular skill like reflective practice. So as part of this theme, we provided a whole bunch of journals to a bunch of students and faculty members so they could build a habit of reflective practice and actually writing in a diary or a journal as part of their classroom experiences. We provided some equipment to a faculty member in art who wanted to build in virtual reality experiences into her classroom and into her studio work. This is a really cool class. And then some other examples is we've been able to send students to sites in Providence. So for example, go see a play that's related to the thing that they're learning, go tour a site in Providence that's related to what they're learning. In other cases, we've been able to bring guest speakers to Providence College related to whatever students are learning. So some of this we can't do right now, right? We can't send people out into the community because of the pandemic, but I'm confident that we'll be doing that pretty soon again. And there's a lot of things we can do even during the pandemic by bringing people virtually into our classrooms, and we're committed to doing that this next academic year. So another example is sending students to competitions. So this was a startup competition and our students placed 3rd place. This is the very first time Providence College had participated in this particular competition, and we're really proud of our students for their idea. All right, number 3, so we do a lot of coaching students of all class years about who are interested in applying for fellowships and scholarships. And we've had a lot of success recently, so I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures. I'll go through this pretty quick, but just to say that Providence College, as more and more, is having really good success in helping our students get really prestigious competitive fellowships and scholarships. So the Fulbright program is one really good example of that. So the Fulbright program is a program that's run through the U.S. Department of State. And what happens is students are sent to a variety of different countries around the world to do lots of different things, to either teach English, to do research, to study, and they serve as United States cultural ambassadors. This year in 2020, we had 3 students win Fulbright English teaching assistantships. 2 of them accepted their awards, and Nicole was given an award for Indonesia. She actually chose instead to take another opportunity. She's going to teach in Uganda, but she's still going to have a global experience. And so all of those students are getting ready to go in spring of 2021, I believe. They're starting their fellowship. I also want to point out that we had a Fulbright student who was the alternate. So even though she wasn't the winner, she was the runner-up, and it's really prestigious, so I wanted to mention it. She's going to study, get her graduate degree in England. We had a student win the prestigious Humanity in Action Fellowship this year. This is a fellowship about human rights and social justice. And then in previous years, we've also had similar numbers of winners. So these were our 2019 winners, 2018 winners. We also recently had a Goldwater recipient, and this is a Math, Science, and Engineering Fellowship. So we were really excited about that. And I bring these up because even though it's not on your radar now, it's something that we're really tuned to at Providence College. thinking about your experiences and the way you're engaging at Providence College, and thinking about how can you get the experiences you need at Providence College so that you can think about an experience like this, like a Fulbright experience or a Goldwater experience after you leave PC. So we're preparing you to have really interesting postgraduate paths. All right, number 4, the last one, I promise. This is my favorite. So one of the major things that the Center for Engaged Learning does is we really highlight undergraduate research and undergraduate creative work, and we provide a lot of support for that. So one way we do that is every single year in April, we host a big showcase of all of the student research and creative work that's happened in the previous year. And this year, so it always happens in April. This year, obviously, everybody was at home, so we couldn't do it in person, but we managed to do it online virtually, and it's still there. So I put the link at the bottom. If you go to the Engaged Learning pages on your own time, you can browse 100 different student presentations and think about all of the different types of work the students have done. And these are not just senior graduating students. These are students of all class years who are doing really interesting work, and they're from all different disciplines. So they're from the natural sciences, they're from the humanities, they're doing translations and writing poetry, they're doing social science and social justice work, they're doing case studies in their business classes. It's such exciting, amazing work. I encourage you to take a look. I'll also show you a couple examples because I think they're really exciting. We also give out research grants. We give them out during the academic year and in the summer. And these are grants to either individual students or groups of students who want to do their own project with the guidance of a faculty mentor. So here are some previous projects so that we already have the results for. This was a summer research project documenting the different types of species of ant in Rhode Island. This was a project last summer, a social science project where a student traveled to Newark, New Jersey and did a lot of in-person, in-depth interviews. This was a film student who traveled to France to the Cannes Film Festival. And another social science and global studies project. This summer, so I don't have any results to show you from this summer, but we did manage to keep our summer 2020 program going. A lot of other schools had to cancel their programs, but we fought really hard to keep our summer 2020 program, and we figured out a way to do it safely. And so we were able to give out our usual 15 summer research awards. And I don't have a picture of every single student who got an award. I just had a picture of a couple that I threw up. But students from all over campus are doing remote research. They're doing things like digging through historical archives. We have one student who's doing a psychological study with children, and so she's interviewing them and testing them over Zoom. We have a couple students who are actually in the science laboratories in a very safe, socially distant way, doing their bench work. We have lots of students who are doing social science, community-based work, and they're doing lots of interviews, again, using Zoom. We have a number of students who are doing testing different types of psychological interventions. So one to see if they can reduce bias, one to improve mindset. Really, really exciting work. And I can't wait to see the results of those. We'll have those results in about a month. And so I invite you to come back to the Providence College website in about a month and see the results of some of this amazing work. Okay, that's enough for me. If you don't, so please do ask your questions now, but if there is something else you think about later, please feel free to look me up and send me a message. So let me stop sharing. And again, so I'm happy to answer any questions about those, but there's lots of other types of engaged learning experiences that Providence College answers. So things like study abroad and study away, things like internships through career education, things like public service through the Feinstein Institute for Public Service. So feel free to ask about those too, and I'll do my best to answer.
I know one thing that maybe we could talk about is have students taken anything from their study abroad experience and brought it back as a research experience through the Center for Engaged Learning?
Absolutely. That's a really great question. So one thing that I have learned and I've seen happen is that students are really proactive and great about integrating lots of different types of engaged learning experiences they've had. So for example, they might do a semester abroad, or maybe even just a spring break abroad, or go on a short-term faculty-led program abroad, and that sparks some interest in them, and they come back and they're really motivated to dive deeper into whatever they've learned or some sort of topic of interest. So one example that I'll use is a student that I can think about who studied abroad as part of a class. So he went to Guatemala with Dr. Dana Dillon, who teaches a theology class that has an abroad component. They go for a week abroad and come back. And that experience really prompted that student to think about doing, applying for a Father Smith Fellowship, which is another opportunity that's offered in the summer here at Providence College. And he was awarded that fellowship, so he spent his summer in Latin America, and then came back, and over the course of his senior year did some more research, did some more thinking, and that led him to apply for a Fulbright scholarship to spend even more time abroad. So lots of different types of experiences, the global education experiences, they come from a lot of different places, not just course-based, but outside of your courses too, can sort of weave together and can lead you to research, can lead you to internship. Everybody has a unique path. I'll also say that some of our students who go abroad do research while they're abroad. So they will purposely select programs that offer them research experiences or that offer them internship experiences. So we have some abroad programs that require internships. So you're really just not living when you're abroad. You don't have to live in sort of a bubble. You get out, you get in the community, you work in the community, you study in the community.
Another question I could think of is, if I'm a history major, but I've always been passionate about psychology on the side, could I do my Center for Engaged Learning project psychology based, or do you have to focus it on your major?
That is also a great question. There is absolutely no requirement to do a research project within your major or your minor. All that's required is that you have some sort of faculty mentor who is overseeing your project. But that could be anybody that you've taken a class with, or it could just be anybody who maybe you went to office hours, right? You have a really cool idea for a project. I've definitely known students, right, to show up to somebody's office hours or give them a call and say like, hey, so this thing that I read or this show that I watched really got me thinking about X, Y, and Z. Can we talk about that? And sometimes that leads in a really interesting place.
So can freshmen start doing research, or do you usually see them starting as a sophomore?
That is also a really good question. Absolutely, first-year students can start. The earlier you start, the better in my book. I will say that usually it's not until sophomore year that we see students applying for grants, because it does take a little bit of time often to develop a project idea. So it's hard to come in immediately with a project idea, although if you did, more power to you. But what we do see is that first-year students get involved as research assistants. So sometimes they either volunteer with a faculty member to help them a couple hours a week on a research project, or if they have a work study job, they can be a research assistant as their on-campus job. And this is a really great experience to have, especially as a young student, because it lets you work really closely with a faculty member, gives you access to that faculty member maybe you wouldn't already have. And you learn a lot just by listening in, just by doing some really basic stuff. And that experience helps translate to your classes. So when you're in your classes and you're having to learn formally about this, you kind of already have a leg up.
So when students are doing research, does it mostly have to be with the professor, or they can go off on their own?
That is also a really great question. It really varies. So, and this varies a little bit by discipline, so what type of research you're doing. It also it varies by student preference. So for example, in the natural sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, the tradition in those disciplines is that you're working really, really closely with your faculty mentor, and you guys are in the lab together, and maybe not every single day, not every single hour, but it's a really collaborative exercise. Whereas the tradition and custom in some other fields is a little bit more solitary. So for example, a student would generate his or her own idea. So for example, say history, English, philosophy, and spend a lot of time with the text they need to, spend a lot of time with the primary sources, and check in with their faculty member maybe once a week. So have a weekly progress meeting with that faculty member. And where the idea comes from varies a lot too. So sometimes it's a completely student-generated idea. They come up with it, they find somebody on the faculty who is interested in that as well, and it's very, very, very student-driven. Other times, it's very faculty-driven, right? So a faculty member might have had an idea for a project, but just for whatever reason never got around to it, or they didn't really have the time to do it, or they needed extra people to help with. And so maybe a student comes to their office and says like, gosh, I'm really interested in doing more marketing work. If you're a student who's interested in marketing, like, I'm really fascinated by this. And through that conversation, right, the faculty member might say like, hey, you know what? I had this idea a couple years ago that I never did anything about. Let me tell you about it. And the student might say, wow, that sounds really cool. I'd love to work on that. And there you go, a project develops. So I think the thing to remember is there's no one path. There's so many different paths. A student might start off in research and decide to go from research to internship. You might start with internship and then choose to go to study abroad. You just kind of have to see where your path takes you.
Awesome. How do students apply for a research grant?
Gotcha. So we offer 3 or 4 different application cycles every year. And so it's an online application. And what happens is students write out a research plan for us, and they write out a budget. They get their faculty mentor to sign off on it. And then we review those a couple different times a year. So we have a cycle for the fall for students who want to do projects mainly in the fall semester. We have 2 different deadlines for the spring semester if you want to start for the spring. And then we always have 1 or 2 summer deadlines for students who are thinking about doing their projects in the summer. So we try to make it pretty easy, pretty streamlined. The academic year programs, the fall and the spring, the applications are pretty short. The one in the summer is a tiny bit longer just because it's a bigger award. But we've really tried to make it easy, not very stressful, and so that whenever you have your idea, there's a grant cycle for you.
Great. Any other questions from our students? All right, in the chat, we had a thank you for how great this program is that we offer.
Thank you very much for coming.
All right, any other questions you may have for myself or for Dr. Fanread? All right. Well, thank you all for attending this webinar on our Center for Engaged Learning. Please keep checking back on our admissions website for any updates with different webinars, tours on campus, and for our fall. And please feel free to reach out to myself or Dr. Fanread if you have any questions moving forward. We hope you enjoy the rest of your summer. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, guys.